Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you all are. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jonathan Yakashaw from TechConnect. I'll be your host and moderator today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me talk with representatives from SpaceWERX. We have got Mary Shippey, Captain Andrew Ermitano, and Danny McNeely here to talk to you all today. So, as you're sitting here today, I'm sure that you all have questions. A number of you submitted questions as part of your registration process. Fantastic. Love to see it. Thank you very much for that. As you're listening to our experts talk today, as you realize that you have questions, pop them into the Q&A box, okay? We want to hear what your questions are. We've got some slides to go through with you. They're going to talk for a while, and then we're going to get to your questions. So pop them in. That being said, if your question is related to a specific SpaceWERX program or about how your technology might fit in with SpaceWERX, that's going to be a bit too granular and not really quite the right format for today's session. But with that in mind, submit your questions. We want to hear what you guys are talking about. With that, I'm going to stop talking because we have the experts here, so let's hear what they have to say. Chippy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, you could go to the next chart. 750 people. This is amazing. I'm so excited that everyone's here interested to learn about SpaceWERX. Just really quick, basically, SpaceWERX is part of both AFRL, Air Force Research Lab on the Air Force side, and then we're also part of Space Systems Command. So we have two parents, and but our mission is primarily all space. We have our hub called the Bridge in LA, and that's where we're headquartered. The next slide. So there's three. It's coming. Okay, so there's three branches of SpaceWERX. There's the Ventures, the Spark, and the Prime team. I'm the strategic partnerships lead under SpaceWERX Spark, and this is where we do outreach and warfighter requirements generating. We were working on, at least we've done 6 challenges that basically our crowdsourcing program, and we've given at least $10 million to innovative programs. I'm going to turn it over to Danny to explain Prime.
Hi, Danny McNeely. I'm on the Prime team. I am the our cohort development program manager. Basically, what we have done is we have designed a development program that helps to group our companies as they come into individual cohorts. What we have found with this is it tends to not only build up a collaborative environment for them within the companies themselves, but also with academia and other PEOs. And we've had a lot of success with this, and it helps us to provide the mentorship that they need to not only execute their current contracts, but also make connections to transition in the future.
And lastly, my name is Captain Andrew Ermitano. So I'm the Deputy Ventures Chief of SpaceWERX. As you can see, we pretty much control the acquisitions of what we do. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but our entire portfolio is about $470 million annually. And just to give you a rough idea of the scale of how much we've done so far, at least starting from the beginning of FY24, we've awarded 538 contracts to 402 distinct companies, which has been about $635 million so far. Obviously, we're not done with this fiscal year yet, so we expect to get additional investments, and we'll talk about that later in terms of additional opportunities that the audience can participate in.
Next.
Next slide.
Yes, next.
Okay, so how do we do? So I'll start from the venture side. Again, as Jonathan said earlier, this is purposely broad because of the type of audience that we have, ranges from academia to industry, from government. So we're gonna go over a little bit more from the broad side. If you have more specific questions, we can have that in a different forum. Please reach out to us. Our contact information will be provided later. But what do we really do? And I think I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with different innovation ecosystems, but so I'm not gonna talk about how we do government acquisitions as a whole. I'm gonna talk about how we do it differently at SpaceWorks. So I like to point out in terms of, I think it starts with requirements generation. How do we do requirements generation that dictates what we invest on moving forward? And there's two general pipelines where that comes from. We call it an open topic and specific topic. And the names are pretty self-explanatory, right? So open topic is what we call like a tech agnostic investments. And there's currently one out right now, which is called 25. Open topic 25.5, which is allowing for direct to phase twos, I'll talk more about that later, but there's an ongoing solicitation for open topic. But for that, it's tech agnostics. That means anything you have that you think the DoD could use, specifically the Space Force could utilize. That is something we'll consider pretty much everything, right? Obviously, it's competitive because of that nature, and we like to say about 10% plus minus 5% in any given solicitation is the likelihood of a company winning, something like that. On the other hand, we also have something called specific topic, and this branches out to different types of programs that we have. But again, I'll start with the high level. Specific topic, as the name implies, is more specific, right? There's left and right balance in terms of what those requirements are. For example, we recently invested in alternative PNT, position navigation and timing. We're not prescriptive enough to tell you like, hey, this has to be related to something X, right? It's just like, hey, the Space Force is looking for capabilities that's like, how do we operate in a GPS denied environment? Tell us how we can solve that problem. That's the boundary of the specificity. But we're asking specific, like we're asking industry to tell us exactly how to address those. The difference as well is that in an open topic, generally speaking, from the earlier stages of that investment, we don't know who the end user is going to be. So, for example, if we're talking in a phase one, we don't know who that's going to be, but part of your deliverables is identifying who that's going to become. So it is built in the programming to find who your transition partners will be. If you're talking about a direct to phase two, part of the eligibility requirements, I think most of you will probably be familiar with, is that the need for that customer memorandum, which is pretty much a signal to us so that we know who the transition partner is once those contracts get awarded. In a specific topic, that the calculus kind of changes because the way we do the requirement sourcing is that program offices come to us requesting for these topics to be invested on. From the government side, that's a competitive uh, evaluation as well, because naturally, because of the quote unquote free funding that we provide, a lot of program offices seek the support that we offer from that end of it. So we can't fund everybody's priorities. So there is a level of rigor and evaluations that we do internally for that. But ultimately, what that really means is that what you see in a specific topic solicitation has been vetted by the SpaceWorks team, as well as that it's a top. You can rest assured that those are top priorities from the program office side. In a sense, that the risk of transition is generally lower because now you already know exactly who you're going to start working with from the initial prototype or the feasibility study and onwards. It is competitive. Usually, like not everybody's going to transition from a phase one to a phase two to a phase three or whatever commercialization contract that comes after that. But at least the path is more predictable because at least you already know what ecosystem you're going to fit in. And then lastly, we have the strategic funding increase or tactical funding increase, STRATFI or TACFI for short, right? It's just more strategic partnerships this is where we do a lot of joint venture with industry and actually the government themselves. I'll talk more about this later when we go to the next chart about the funding level that we provide, but TACFI STRATFI is essentially that's a between a phase two and a phase three where you're not quite ready to do a commercialization. You can't get procurement funding or operation and maintenance because you're still in that research and development phase, but you've already gotten a phase two with us. There's an opportunity to capture more cyber funding between $2 million up to a $60 million effort, and I'll cover that later. The difference there is that now we're asking for more skin in the game from our partners, whether that's from private industry or the government partner, where they have to match what we provide. So next slide, please. Okay, this got rearranged a little bit. So this was supposed to be in the beginning, but again, just kind of giving a scale of our portfolio size. Uh, DAF-wide, which means AFWERX and SpaceWERX, we generally have about $1.4 billion annually. And you can see that that's growing. We don't know what that's going to be based on the current administration, but at least we're currently expecting $471 million as part of the SpaceWERX side of that portfolio. That's the one that gets distributed between the open topic portfolio, the specific topic, and the growth stage initiatives, investments. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier in terms of what does this look like for you, for industry. Again, I don't know who else is on the line here, but from the industry side, what kind of resources do we provide? What's the opportunity? What does the path kind of look like? You can see here it looks kind of linear, but there's opportunities for you to jump from directly to a phase two, which is what we call direct to phase two. Pretty straightforward in our naming conventions. But phase one is a feasibility study. Generally speaking, you get like $75 to $150,000. And there's a huge bulk of what we do here. So a lot of the things we work with early stage companies. We're talking about technology readiness level from like 1 to 3, and they're just trying to see if whatever capability they have makes sense for the government. If it's not ready to be prototyped at a particular like program office, this is usually where we direct people to participate in. Like if you just want to see what the feasibility of that idea is, hey, why don't you consider applying to the phase one, because you can capture $75 to $150,000 to kind of refine that idea, which is in terms of deliverables. Again, part of that is like a white paper report about how your idea makes sense, in addition to you finding who your potential transition partners are for an eventual phase two, right? So networking is obviously I don't want to say that, but in terms of like your business development, we're trying to lower that barrier to entry by giving you a phase one, because now you have an actual deliverable to identify who that's going to be. For a phase two, this is higher. Obviously when we're looking at prototyping, we're looking at around $2 million. That usually fluctuates based on inflation. That's a SBA set. They pretty much take that. But generally speaking, we can do up to $2 million for a phase two. 21-month to 24-month period of performance. This majority of the things the SpaceWERX side is kind of focused on, because space is inherently more expensive than other technologies the department kind of focuses on. So we're heavy on phase twos from the space side. And then the TAFI STRATFI, I've kind of mentioned this already in earlier in the previous slide, but generally speaking, about 30% of our portfolio is allocated to TAFI STRATFI, considering this is kind of like that final push to really get you to transition out of the CIBER or the research development phase. So this is a pretty heavy focus in our portfolio in terms of, okay, we need to really focus on this. The difference here is that from a phase one and a phase two, you're competing against other small business companies proposing to those solicitations. On the other hand, for a TACFI or STRATFI, these are packages submitted by your program office partners. What that means is, instead of a solicitation, we call it a notice of opportunity, which actually we have one currently live as well for a TACFI. So the difference is there is the program office submit those packages in support of transition for your existing phase two. So obviously that means there's a higher level of support that you need to get for that. From a TACFI perspective, the current requirements are the sponsorship needs to be at its 06 or a GS15 equivalent. So the package needs to be signed and approved by that level from whoever your TPOC is or your program office you're supporting. For the STRATFI side, currently that is at the PEO level, considering we're matching up. Like SpaceWERX is going to provide up to $15 million. That can go up to $60 million with all the matching contributions. We're asking for a PEO level approval for that. And then what that really looks like is that SpaceWERX goes to a board, and then we rack and stack and we go. It's a different kind of evaluation process that goes through. And of course, phase three is usually what people are after, because there's no dollar limitation in terms of the color of money, the funding amount and period of performance. So it can be $100 million O&M funding for a 10-year period of performance. That is really up to your customer in terms of how they want to structure this. The benefit of being participating in any of the phase ones or the phase twos initially is that we have what we call a sole source reciprocity across pretty much the federal government that participates in the SBIR program, meaning you get a phase one from SpaceWERX, you can then take that particular effort to a different department like the Department of the Navy or really anybody like Department of Energy that has this program, and you can award on a sole source basis. So, for example, you have a phase one, and you skip the phase two, you skip the TAC by STRAT by, you can jump to a phase three if that's what your program office wants to support. Obviously, from the SpaceWERX side, our funding is really limited to that phase one, phase two, and TAC by STRAT by. Phase three is now utilizing the program office funding. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in terms of success stories, just to see like, okay, why should I care about this? What's the benefit from the company itself? As I mentioned earlier, we have about 500 awards so far. I'm gonna highlight just what we call our challenges, which is a cohort of a bunch of specific topics. For example, there's a slight typo there, but the first one is technically responsive space, which is a challenge owned by Space Safari. We made 18 awards, about $31 million, but alternative P&T is the P&T effort that I was kind of mentioning earlier, and Digital Spaceport of the Future is with assured access to space. Collectively, these are the ongoing challenges we have, was about 47 awards worth $90 million, but in terms of traction that they've gotten since the awards of these contracts, from the government success, meaning additional government contracts after the SBIR award, has reached over $1.3 billion. And in terms of commercial success, whether that's commercial contracts or additional private investment from those companies, has close to $1 billion. Collectively, from a $90 million investment from us, has got pretty much gained momentum from these companies that got about $2.3 billion already. The difference there is like our funding is all non-dilutive, so the way we track return of investment is not really in terms of financial returns, because again, we don't have equity. What we care more is about how that your particular capability transitions out of the SBIR world, meaning additional commercial contracts, additional government contracts, or tech maturity. If you started working with us at the tier 1 to 3 range, obviously we put you into a lot of programming besides the monetary resources to bring you up to like something that will be able to at least get to a prototype, like a tier L7 level or onwards, or it's actually being utilized by the program offices that you're currently supporting. It's a wide range of pathways there, but that's the general kind of overview of that. So next slide, please. Okay, I will.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Andrew, for that awesome roll-up of ventures. Now we're going on to Danny so she can tell you about Prime.
Hi. So again, as Andrew was just explaining, those different groups, the different challenges are almost grouped into what we call cohorts. So TAC-RS was a cohort. The Alt P&T is going to be its own cohort, and same with Digital Spaceport. So again, our very first one was Orbital Prime, and we had a lot of successes, but we also learned a lot of lessons and how we could improve that program. If you could, next slide.
Sure.
Okay, so while we wait for that, okay, here it is. What we learned was we had strengths and weaknesses, but the best way we found to assess the situation was to work where we really saw our problem was right at that transition period to help our companies get over that valley of death, right? We've all heard the term, we know it's out there, and we want to help our companies not only get through their contracts, their current contracts, but also get over that valley of death and actually succeed in transitioning. So we worked our way backwards, and what we found were there were 3 areas we needed to focus on: business acumen, technology maturation, and ecosystem orchestration. What we found was with the business side of things, a lot of the small businesses just are not aware of how to do business with DoD. So we focused on how to educate them on doing business with DoD. The technology maturation, as Andrew mentioned, they come in at a certain level on the TRL scale, and sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations as far as where they believe they're at versus how DoD perceives them and what level that DoD says that they're at. So we have to have those conversations and make them aware of why DoD perceives it differently and how we can help them to excel and get to a higher level. Then we also have the ecosystem. We want to create a marketplace where there's lots of different companies out there that can meet the demands that the PEOs are going to need. We want them to have options. We don't want it to be only large businesses out there that can provide the solution. We want there to be multiple small businesses that they can, our PEOs can select from to find a solution to their needs. Next slide. So on here, again, talking through the ways we've grown this, our onboarding, one way we've improved our program is now we have this Innovate to Accelerate curriculum, where again, it's a totally optional service that we provide, but it is an onboarding that helps educate our companies on how to do business, what exactly the scale is and where they're likely at. It gives them the chance to interface with different speakers from different agencies. Then we also have the technology maturation part, which is our aerospace technology readiness level boot camp, where again, we help give them a true assessment of where they're at and give them time in labs and with SMEs directly to help guide them in how they can mature their products. We've also gone forward again with the StratFi TACFIs. Now, again, that is something that is specific to the Air Force and Space Force. The other DoD agencies do not offer that product yet. Hopefully, maybe in the future, but I know a unique part of that is the fact that it's an Air Force option to do StratFis and TACFIs. Another piece, again, with the transition, as Andrew mentioned, we've got the phase 3s. We've got other opportunities where we try to connect companies with each other, with academia. There's lots of opportunities. We, again, try to match make as much as we possibly can across the board. So when you think of Prime, really think of us as that service, that white glove service. We're here to mentor not only the small businesses, but also our PEOs, because not all of them are even aware of all the opportunities out there that they could take advantage of. So we're here to educate on both sides. Next slide.
Okay, thank you for that, Danny. Last but not least is Spark. We are basically the front door of SpaceWERX. We work hand in hand with the programs, get warfighter requirements. We have colliders at our hubs. They're basically fun mixers where we have food and drinks, and whole ecosystem shows up. We've got VCs, we've got small businesses, we've got government there, we've got city government. Whole ecosystem of space people show up. We also have the challenges that Andrew was talking about. And then we also have industry and academia outreach, where we have programs where we also do matchmaking and just efforts of getting out there and telling the good news of SpaceWERX. We go on so many events and so are part of panels and presentations. And basically, Spark is out there to tell the world about SpaceWERX and any opportunities that are about to happen or can happen. Next chart. So probably want to know how to get involved with SpaceWERX, right? There's different entities, but you guys are probably more focused as small businesses. We've got submissions, opportunities open. We have a D2P2 opportunity that's closing here pretty soon. We've got a TACFI opportunity as well. We've got AMAs, we've got lunch and learns, we've got virtual boothing. We're at a lot of booths and events. We're all over the socials. We're LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Instagram, and our bridge is our hub where we hold our mixers and events. So there's no short of ways to get in contact with us. And the fact that our emails are down there too probably will make it a lot easier. So if you need like any questions you have, if you want to sign up for one-on-ones, just let us know, and we'll point you in the right direction. And I think this is about the end. Before questions, I wanted to thank Laura and Jonathan for inviting us to this. I'm really excited, and hopefully you guys have learned a little bit more than you knew before.
All right, if you guys are done with slides, I'll stop the share. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, so folks, you guys have got questions coming in left, right, and center, so that's fantastic. We're going to start going through some of your questions. Keep them coming in. We're going to go for the rest of our time
They
to
all go to
answering your
Andrew.
questions. And by me, as long as somebody's answering them. We're going to get to as many of your questions as we can. So with that, Andrew, since you have been officially designated as being on the hot seat, one of the questions we've got, what is the best way to establish a relationship with SpaceWERX?
Oh, she just so
Yeah.
Shippy just talked about it, but this really just being present. So we're very public in terms of what we do, what our portfolio looks like, the events we have. So there's different opportunities that you can actually influence the requirements that we solicit eventually. I briefly alluded to the challenges, but I didn't really talk about how that kind of works, right? In actuality, that's essentially just a specific topic, but the difference there is that it's more like a normal specific topic would probably yield like 1 to 2 awards per topic, but a challenge can become is usually larger from like the 10 to 20 types of awards. Because of that, we provide a lot more kind of programming support just to facilitate, like one, to make it easier for the program office that owns that challenge, as well as making it a more collaborative event for industry to participate in. So what that from the very, very left hand side of that, like in terms of topic generation and how that makes us kind of different, is the solicitation you see in DSIP for those the companies that have proposed to that. What we do is what we call a challenge definition workshop, where we pretty much invite industry, academia, and all the entities that Shippy talked about in an event where they're like, hey, we have an alt PNT problem. What are the things we need to consider and refine those requirements in terms of solicitation? You can actually, like anybody on the line can participate in those events, and you can directly influence what kind of things we invest on eventually, right? So that's one direct way to really stay engaged with what we're doing. In terms of getting involved in the rest of the ecosystem, getting some face time with us, like what Shippy said, we have a lot of events. We have a public-facing investor dashboard. If you're an investor and you care about using our dashboard to see which companies would probably be more enticing to award, we're very public about that. You can see the abstracts, you can see the dollar amounts, and all that kind of stuff. If you're academia, we're actually at Harvard currently, and we had a different speaking engagement. We try to do a lot of these outreaches to different universities to get some of that partnership. Obviously, a lot of these universities have a lot of talent that we're looking for, so we do have a lot of the engagement there. If you're industry, if you're a small business company and you're just looking some pace time, the bridge, as the name kind of implies, is the bridge to industry to the government. That's the kind of idea of the naming there. Is like it's open to the public, and since of the return to work order recently, all of us will be there all the time. So if you wanted to just chat with me, for example, or any of our team, you can attend this. The bridge is in El Segundo, so if you're somewhere else, obviously it has to be virtual. But our facility is open to the public to attend. Just have if you have questions about how Supra works, helping you with navigating acquisition strategy, or you have a customer who wants to work with you and they don't know what that looks like, those are prime opportunities to reach out directly to us, whether they're in person or virtual. But yeah, just a quick summary there. Hopefully that captures what you're asking for, Jonathan.
As a matter of fact, you actually answered the next question I was going to ask, so well done.
Okay.
Had a number of questions, both in part of the registration and during today's session asking about usage of OTAs, other transaction authorities. Does SpaceWERX use OTAs when engaging with commercial space entities?
So it's not us directly. So what we do with phase one to phase two is pretty cookie cutter. It's the same amount of funding, and generally speaking, once you submit their proposals, is standardized like formatting in terms of work plan. Obviously, the technology is different, and what you're trying to accomplish is obviously different. So the way we've been doing is, generally speaking, once phase ones and phase twos are standard firm fixed price contracts. Where that changes is when we're talking about attack by or stratify or Cyber phase three. For attack by or stratify, so phase ones and phase twos are awarded by us, generally speaking, internally. Sometimes some changes there, but generally speaking, that's what we do, and that's what we do. I think in the past year or so, AFWERX as a whole, which encompasses the Air Force and the Space Force requirements, I think they've awarded about over 2,000 contracts. So it's just more where the trend there is more cookie cutter, just to make it because of the scale, right? Where that changes is when those when we provide funding still, but it's now executed by our program office partners, whether it's a PO or technical director from an AFRL entity or something, right? So that they have more options to award whatever they want, whether it's an OT or otherwise, right? It doesn't really matter to us. That's their choice. Like I already said, from even more for the Civil Phase 3, I didn't really mention contract type. So, there's no limitation in terms of funding level, peer performance, as long as the continuation of the previous effort. But in terms of contract type, you can make an IDIQ that's like $300 million if your program office that owns the Super Phase 3 wants to support that. It's really up to that program office what kind of contract type they would award. So to answer your question, do we consider? Yes, but from the SpaceWERX execution, we don't do that. But if you leverage the portfolio, the additional entities can leverage OTAs.
Okay, all right. Another big bright green through line through the questions is international collaboration. Is SpaceWERX able to engage with non-US companies or companies that are led by non-US citizens? How do you guys come down on that?
Okay, yeah, I guess I'll take this again.
Yes.
Currently, I'm going to speak today. SpaceWERX only has what we call cyber funding, right? Small business innovative research funding or small business technology transfer. Whether that's you're partnering with, but you're doing it itself by the company themselves, or there's a research institution partnership. What that means is that our awards has to be direct to a U.S.-owned small business company, which is defined as 500 employees or less. That is not majority owned by a venture capital organization or other large firm, as well as that from the U.S. standpoint, they have to be a U.S. citizen or a green card holder. But that doesn't preclude subcontracting opportunities or partnerships with other entities. From a phase one perspective, they can subcontract 33% of the work to whoever they want to partner with. For a phase two, that's 50-50. A majority of that work has to be done by the small business company we're working with. So where does the other entities, I'm just going to lump them all together because it's generally the same thing from in terms of if they wanted to partner with large primes or foreign entity, they can subcontract whatever the agreement looks like. That's part of the proposal package. They can submit that. Obviously, what do you call it? The contract has to be directly to that small business company, but they can partner. Of course, you can't partner with like a CCP because we have a due diligence process where some of the foreign influence is not acceptable in any other government contract. It's just not going to do that, right? But in terms of like, hey, I have a partner with some of our allies. Yeah, but that's generally fine. I do want to say that like in terms of the principal investigator and the research has to be done on U.S. soil. So and the company we're awarding the contract to, generally speaking, the PI needs to be primarily employed by that particular company. Whatever else you do in terms of that arrangement can be pretty flexible.
Okay. And based on that flexibility, would it be fair to say that if there's an organization that is let's say, less than 100% certain that they would meet the security/nationality qualifications, you'd rather hear from them to talk about how you might make that work rather than an organization self-selecting out of the process.
Yes. So there's two pieces. If you're concerned about it, all right, you just let us know. We can figure it out, right? But at the same time, generally speaking, what we have done is self-certification. If people register in sam.gov, there's a bunch of questionnaires that you have to self-certify that you are still a small business company and that you're not majority owned by a different firm and all that kind of stuff. That is self-certified that you submit to us. It doesn't preclude us from doing our internal due diligence and verifying what you said, but there's kind of two layers. Like you can self-certify first, but if you care, just ask us.
Okay. Broad spectrum question here. So, and actually, I've got a great question that I will wrap up and just kind of pin for a second here. Small business organization, they are looking at engaging with SpaceWERX. What is kind of their best starting point to get well established with you all, but also just establishing what they need to do to be ready to engage with you guys? What can they do to make sure that the process goes as smoothly as possible?
I think the number one thing that small businesses should do is really do their research. Really find out where they fit in, like which PEO or which program, what tech do we need, like where are our gaps. Like a lot of that has to be on the small business, but a lot of that can happen too. Honestly, for me, going and meeting people, and even if it's not government or SpaceWorks, other small businesses like to help each other as well when they go to these events and these mixers, and just get kind of research market research on what is out there, how we flow, just our accelerators. We've got accelerators and the challenge programs and all those kind of opportunities. Just start talking. Just start talking to us. We're all over the place. We're in almost every event out there that's related to space. You could also, like for example, Space Systems Command has a really good industry day that I really love, because that's where the PEOs kind of say, hey, this is my commercial need, and they're open to talk to industry because it's obviously industry day. So just understand, get on our socials, know what's happening, talk to people, and just make your also too, if you, like for example, like have a in the phase one sphere, you can download our application and just kind of look and see what is it that we're asking for, what is it we're looking for, and fill in the form. You don't necessarily have to send it, but it gives you an idea of where you need to go, and just how to be involved. So that's what I would do.
If I can also jump on that, another way to really highlight again how your company could be set apart is talk about the dual use, right? We're always looking for how are you going to meet a DoD need, and also how are you helping, or what can your product do for the commercial side of things as well. That really helps to show that you're multifaceted and that there's more of a market out there, and we can help you with that. Not all companies take that into consideration, or they think we only want to do DoD, but the reality is we actually want to support both sides of the house. We want to do DoD and the commercial side.
Just
Great.
just so sorry, just to add a little bit. I think based on, for example, if there's a bunch of new companies that's on the line, something to think about really is just relevance in terms of your approach. Like you're not gonna, if you're an early stage company who just, you're doing a feasibility study, you can't expect to reach out to an operational organization and expect them to onboard your thing, because if it's an IT system, you're not going to replace their entire system. You need to take into context the way the government does business is it's generally resistant to change. So if it's something that it's a monolithic change, it's probably not going to happen. But if you're early stage and trying to learn how to do cybers, we have launchpad sessions where we can do some of these education pieces for industry. If you're looking to, you're in a phase 2 realm and you're trying to figure out some of those partners to get like a customer memorandum signature, for example, those are the perfect events to attend in some of the demo days that we have, because now we have partners from industry. If you can partner with them to get some, letters of support or whatever that may be, or as your customer memorandum signed by the program offices that attends those events, that would be more relevant for you to attend. I think you just have to pick an event, or we have a lot, like what my counterparts here have discussed, but you need to pick where to start, is what's the most relevant, what do you want to do first, and pick that first. So
Okay. All right, folks, we are just about out of time, so I'm going to start to wrap everything up. I do have one final question, and Chippy, it's for you. We have somebody wants to know, where can they get a SpaceWERX hoodie?
Well, we can't even get our own hoodies. So this is Space Force. Are they talking about my hoodie I have on? You guys not going to be
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so what I have, I got from Amazon.
we're not endorsing Amazon.
We're not endorsing, but honestly, that's where I got it, because I know it was 2-day shipping or 1-day shipping. It was super quick and easy. But internally, we have we get our own swag, but it's not like advertised, or I don't think anyone else wear our swag. I don't know.
There's a connotation of you coming from SpaceWERX and the information we kind of provide to people. So we trend not to give people that would make other entities think that they belong to SpaceWERX.
Yeah.
We are considering other things to provide, like stickers and things like that. But in terms of gear, that would provide a perception, because I'm active duty, but in terms of when we go to events, we wear the same thing, right? So if everybody wore the same thing, it's hard to distinguish which one is an actual SpaceWERX personnel versus another. So we hear you.
Okay.
We are trying to.
In other words, the short answer is just do a little bit of looking, and you can probably find something that'll get you 90% of the way there. Okay, good enough. Folks that are signing in for today's session, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions, because quite frankly, there were a ton of you, and you guys were asking a ton of questions, which is fabulous. To our experts from SpaceWERX, thank you all very much for taking time out of your day to talk with us about SpaceWERX. Couple last minute housekeeping things. If our attendees are interested in more space programs, and I'm going to kind of guess that maybe you are, Tech Connect has a space challenge currently going on. If you're interested, check that out. We are also going to be hosting one of our own in-person space-focused events, the Space Industry and Government Summit. That's going to be in August. Go to techconnect.org. You can learn more about both the challenge and the conference. We would love to have you submit a response. We'd love to see you at the conference. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found this information session helpful. Laura, thank you very much for putting the link into the chat. That'll be very useful for you as well. Everybody, thank you very much for these. We will be doing more of these in the future. Please keep an eye out for them. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.